Hello, I'm Ross Tayler, your host and guide for Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. I'm also a life coach for empaths and sensitive souls, walking alongside those who are ready to come home to who they actually are. These conversations are part of fulfilling that purpose, a collective exploration of what it means to live in connection with the sacred. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space. Other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. If these conversations find you, please subscribe, rate, and share so others can find their way here. Pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today on Sacred Sundays, our guest is Jude Wong. Jude is a therapist and somatic facilitator practicing clinical counseling, integrated hypnotherapy, EMDR, parts work, and age regression in private practice with individuals and relationships since 2021. Her background includes 15 years of apprenticeship with her own personal systemic injuries, also witnessing and companioning hundreds of others in the process of healing in a variety of experiential, intersectional, cultural, and educational settings. She works clinically, intuitively, somatically, and spiritually, holding space for what most wants to be seen, integrated or transformed in each session and in the language and context of each person. At the core of her practice is a deep appreciation for personal and collective healing, the immense wisdom of the body, and the visual or dream states, and the phenomenon of intentional and co-created presence. Welcome to Sacred Sundays.
Thanks, Ross. So glad to be here.
You and I have crossed paths at a place where we both share space in the same place, and we've had some quite organic conversations, and eventually I was like, hey, we should have this conversation on the podcast, and here we are.
Yeah, and I had no idea sort of that you've been doing this, that you've been talking to people about sacred space and
Absolutely.
what we do. Yeah.
So, Jude, you're going to begin by introducing a concept which is referred to as way of counsel as a way to enter our conversation. And so what I'll do is I'll hand it over to you to begin with that, and we will go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah. So the way of counsel has been with me, influencing my way of being and my practice since around 2009. And it's a synergy of indigenous practices for coming together in meaningful ways. It's also often described as speaking and listening from the heart. If you want to know more, there's a book on it called The Way of Counsel by Virginia Coyle and Jack Zimmerman, though they do not credit themselves for the creation of this practice. They credit indigenous peoples all over the world and created it in consultation and with permission with those indigenous peoples. So that feels important to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so the topic of your podcast really brought up a lot for me, got my mind thinking and really pondering this question of what is sacred space. And so before I take us in to potentially sacred space, I'll just say a few words about what sacred space is to me, just to sort of prime our nervous systems and our linguistic systems to what this space is all about. So the first thing that came to mind was that sacred space really it allows us to access information and wisdom that is beyond the mind alone, beyond what we know consciously. So whether we're accessing the wisdom of the body or the dream state, there's really many, many practices that are supporting us to do this, to access that information. So whether it's breath work or hypnotherapy or even a lot of spiritual practices, they're all inviting us to slow down the pace of the mind and to slow down the speed of processing, especially given our ever-quickening world. This becomes more and more profound. So beyond the mind, another term that came to me that has been with me for quite some time is liminal. that the sacred space I would describe as a liminal space between conscious and unconscious, between the seen and the unseen, or even between sleeping and waking. This is where I work in hypnotherapy. That's the state of hypnosis, is between sleeping and waking. And then, yeah, another term I could use is kairos, the concept of kairos versus chronos time. And so chronos is chronological, linear time, and kairos, these are Greek terms, by the way, from the Greek philosophers. And so kairos is the time of the dream state. It's the time of ceremony. It's a state where, a minute can feel like an hour and an hour can feel like a minute. And there can be that distortion of linear time. And the last term that came to me was the concept of phenomenological, which really describes those things that we see sometimes in the dream state or the liminal state that are symbols that only we could recognize as being symbols. So they're very personal and authentic to us. And that strikes me as very, very central to sacred space, to what is sacred. Yeah, those symbols in our day that become themes, and we start to see them everywhere in our day. And so the universe can really work on us in that way, constantly reminding us of new pathways. So
I
with
love
all
that.
that said, and perhaps later in the podcast, I look forward to hearing what sacred space is to you, Ross.
Hmm.
But let's come in first. So I'm going to light the candle that I have here, and I'll invite you to do the same in a moment. And as I light the candle, I'm going to dedicate this space and time. Dedications are part of Wave Council, and we can dedicate to world themes, to people that we're thinking of, to concepts that we're working on within ourselves. So in this context, I feel like dedicating to all the inner healers everywhere throughout the world who are doing our work so that we can companion the work of others. So lighting up that flame, defining this space. And as you light your candle, Ross, I'll invite you. Do you have a dedication? What would you like to dedicate this time and space to come together?
In the spirit of this podcast, I really dedicate the space to those who might be new to this idea of sacred space or might be new to some of the concepts that you shared at the beginning here, and that they become curious about what that means and how they can bring that into their everyday life.
Thank you. So I'm going to take us into a bit of a visualization to help us just land into this intentional space that we're creating. So I invite you to close the eyes or soften the gaze and just begin by noticing any little adjustments that your body needs right now in order to become more comfortable. Even those really, really subtle ones. Just shifting the weight forward or backwards of the tailbone. Allowing the feet to relax into the floor beneath you. And then I'll invite you to imagine all of your cells settling, nuzzling, nestling into each other and becoming a little bit heavier into the surface of your skin, container of your skin, and the surface beneath you. And just noticing the moment of moving from motion into stillness, noticing that transition. In this place, we can notice how the heart is beating in this moment as we arrive. And just notice it without needing to change anything. We can notice how the breath is flowing today. Whether it's high in the chest or low in the belly. And again, not needing to change a thing. You might even begin to hear the sound of your breath as if you were inside your body. The sound of the air moving through all those corridors and passageways. Hearing the inhale and hearing the exhale. And with each exhale, I invite you to soften the bones, the muscles, the organs, the mind, as much as it feels comfortable to soften all those things and release any layers of protection and armoring that you might have been carrying in the outside world today. And finally, you can invite the heart, that big, magnificent muscle right in your chest. Invite that heart to soften. See that heart now expanding with the inhale and returning to its resting state and size on the exhale. So just connecting the heart with the breath. And just noticing this internal state, this internal space, and what it feels like to occupy that internal space with the breath, the heartbeat, the movement of the organs. And notice how these things continue without you having to think about them. That this internal space is absolutely steadfast, no matter what is happening on the outside. And whenever you're ready, when you feel complete, I invite you to open up your eyes. You might keep a nice soft focus. Welcome.
Thank you.
hmm So to begin, What might our first prompt be, Ross?
Mm,
Might just be speaking to anything that you noticed or experienced doing that visualization or
mm.
anything that has been spoken so far.
Yeah, I noticed for myself, as I was dropping into that space and breathing into my belly, I noticed like a little kind of like a sharp pain in my belly. And I just noticed that I was drawn to bring my hand down to that space and just bring energy. And then it dissipated over time and it's gone. But it was interesting to have that experience and to notice it. And then I really felt the dropping into the heart, that space opening up on the invitation, which felt really nourishing and supportive as a way to enter this conversation.
Mm,
What about yourself? What did you notice and feel as you were guiding us
yeah.
into that?
So if we were in council, you would be passing a talking piece to me right
Hmm.
now. You feel complete with what you've shared. So I may just inject pieces of counsel
Sure.
into this conversation. Yeah. Part of the magic of counsel is is speaking uninterrupted and unplanned. So just speaking to what's most alive in us in the moment. So what did I notice? What do I notice coming into our space today? I noticed that I came in with my heart racing. I was a little bit nervous and it was really profound, even though I do that exercise, usually, well, often with each client who comes in. It was really profound to just experience it again for the first time and to notice how at the end my heartbeat had completely slowed down and I felt a sense of relief. I feel a sense of relief to arrive into this space every single time.
Hmm.
So I might put down the talking piece now and we might come into another topic to share on out of the many that,
Mm.
yeah. I'm kind of curious how there's one that's coming to me right now. Yeah. What is your relationship with the sacred space and how is it influencing and dancing with your practice right now?
That's a great question. And I guess it's multi-leveled because I think the biggest thing that I'm appreciating in this moment is slowing down. And for listeners who listen to this podcast a lot, that's a theme that shows up with many of the guests is this concept of slowing down. And a few weeks ago, I actually had an elder in conversation, and that was one of the main messages that he spoke of throughout our conversation. So it's been on my mind. And so when I think of your question, I think about how busy my week is at times and how I'm doing things to keep things in motion. And recently I've gone through a little bit of change and a lot of my practice has kind of not fallen away. It just looks different. Like I'm walking and connecting with nature and trying to slow down. And but in terms of formal practice, I've sort of lost a connection to that recently. And so I realized that in this moment. But normally I start my day by connecting to myself and meditating and having space in my morning. That's the biggest thing. It's like having this space to really root myself and ground myself and connect to whatever that might be on the day. It can change based on what I'm feeling. And so over the years, I've done things like shamanic journeying and different groups. I do men's groups, and there's always an intentional way of starting the space in the men's groups. So it looks different depending on what I'm doing, and it looks different based on kind of the season that I'm in. But there's always some sort of practice, even as little as like lighting some smudge before a session or burning incense during a session like I am right now. So those things, even though they're small touch points, they really help. And sometimes I'll have a crystal in my hand or Yeah, like yesterday I was walking on the beach and I found a piece of beach glass. And so it can be such simple things and it can be profound, but it's also the things that surround me and the things that are my anchors, I guess you could say. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And I will lay down my talking stick.
I will receive your talking piece. I'm using a clock on the other end, because it happens to be what's around me. So liminal space and my practice. I mean, I first experienced the liminal space in a creative process that I mentioned to you in our pre-podcast dialogue, and it's called the Arrivals Personal Legacy Project.
Hmm.
And it was my first experience of many things. It was my first experience of listening on a deeper level, listening to the body and how it wanted to move, in which direction, the objects I was drawn to. And it was my first experience of group process and the medicine of shared group presence. What unfolds is often something that no one individual could have possibly conceived of on our own. And gosh, that just lit such a fire in me. And so that was really my first experience of maybe the sacred, a sense of the sacred, that wisdom and knowingness that's accessible beyond what the mind consciously knows. So it was my first experience of going, oh wow, there's something more than the confines of just me and my brain. Sensory awareness, sensory listening. And then I came into the Way of Counsel. And I came into the Way of Counsel as a client. There was a psychiatrist and a Way of Counsel facilitator who worked together. And I was one of their clients. And so I met in counsel for about 4 years, every 2 weeks, with a dedicated group of other humans seeking transformation, seeking a way to be more at ease in the world and in ourselves. And so this was another deepening for me of the group phenomenon that happened. And then at around the same time, I was also experiencing 12-step groups. I attended Codependence Anonymous. This was about, 10 to 15 years ago, and a group called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And this was another group where I got to witness the phenomenon that happens when we share, especially when we share from an intentional place, when we come together in an intentional way, and how so often I would hear the words that I needed to hear from another person, or I would receive the feedback that I spoke the words that another needed to hear. So this just, that definitely contributed to this fire in me of inspiration. I found it so inspiring that we have that capacity as humans, that we have the capacity to create that medicine for ourselves and each other, and to feel so deeply connected at the same time. And then also at the same time, a whole bunch of different practices started flowing into my life all around this theme. And so I experienced the theme of liminal space. And so I came into experiencing heart-centered hypnotherapy as a client, which was another way of accessing that liminal sacred space in the context of this conversation. Yeah. It was another way of accessing sacred space within myself and beyond. The way that our subconscious sort of guides us in what we see and what we feel in our body. It might not make sense in the moment, but it always makes often very deep and profound sense eventually, whether it's 5 minutes after or the day after or even several months afterwards. Oh my gosh, that's why I saw this image. That's what that was all about. And somewhere in all of that, I also came into a practice called systemic family constellations work. And I think my sense is a lot of your listeners may be familiar with this practice. And it's another way of coming into what that practice calls the field, or the knowing field. And so we stand as a community healing practice, and basically we select people to represent members of our family or aspects of ourselves, parts of ourselves. And we have those representatives stand in space. And as a representative, what you're doing is sensing, oh, do I feel like turning towards or away from this other person or these other people? What's in my body? Am I looking, do I want to look up or down, move closer or move farther away? And just those simple guideposts really guide a constellation into a sense of resolution. And so it was another practice that really utilizes this group presence and accessing information that's beyond our conscious knowing to provide insight and guidance and resolution. And so, yeah, here I am today holding space for individuals and relationships. And yeah, I use the candle to define the therapeutic space and to help us make that transition from the outside world to the inside world and to that deeper way of listening, and to help remind us to slow down. Step one is slow down. I can absolutely resonate with that. And I love that it's been a theme that's come up in your podcasts. That gives me, I feel hope when I hear that. Oh, thank goodness more and more people are discovering the wisdom that's available when we slow down, whether it's with ourselves or with another.
Hmm.
Mhm. Mhm. That feels complete right now. So I'm going to pass our talking piece through the ether
Thank you.
and just invite you to, yeah, respond
Yeah,
what comes up in you as you've been listening.
I think what's coming up for me is
So,
I've had a variation of this experience. There's groups out there that refer to themselves as conscious relating groups, and they sometimes do a thing called T group. And I can't remember what the T stands for, but the bottom line is it's a practice of sharing from present moment awareness and noticing what we're feeling in our body, noticing what is rising in the moment rather than from the mind. And so one of the things I'm appreciating right now is even just the subtlety of surrendering to the space instead of holding a role in this conversation. I'm enjoying the feeling of being in my body instead of thinking my way to what's next. And when I engaged with conscious relating years ago, I was still living in Squamish. It was quite a challenge to get out of my head and to really feel what was going on. And it was a challenge for many of the participants as well. And yet everything gets created in the present moment. And it's so powerful to come from that place. Like, what am I feeling? What's moving within me? What is it that wants to be said? What am I drawn to? And so I'm really appreciating having that experience and having the potential that other people are going to witness this experience and maybe become curious about it and wonder where they can learn more or bring that into their everyday. Because as you said, the slowing down, I'm definitely way slower than I've ever been in my life, but I still move quickly. I'm designed to move quickly. I can have multiple things on the go. And what I've learned though is that the quicker I move, the more I end up making mistakes and redoing things or not noticing what somebody is saying, misunderstanding what someone is saying, not feeling underneath what someone is saying. And that is the beauty of coming into this space is that you listen at a different level. Like when I did my coach training, they talked about these 3 levels of listening, and there's actually a 4th one, which is even deeper. But the 3rd one is really listening to the space. What is the space saying? What are you hearing in the outside? And so that training has taught me this as well. It's like, what are the words that aren't being spoken? What's the impact on the space if someone comes through the door or someone slams a door or a car passes by that's loud? Our bodies, and then this is proven in the studies of the nervous system, is that we're always sensing our space. We might not just be connected to it. So this experience is about dropping into that part of us that is aware of what's going on, and it's subtle, and it's there's a whisper. And so that's where our true wisdom lies, is in that liminal space that you're referring to, and in that open space. So we can tap into something different than we can from our minds. Yeah, so I feel complete with that, and I'll hand the talking stick back to you.
Mm. So as I was listening to you share, I became aware that, yeah, my brain, I'm a little bit heady right now. I think because I'm so excited to embody this space with you. And so there's a part of my nervous system that just it's getting all a little bit revved up. And that's okay. That's great. So I embrace that. And I also responded. I had a response when you were talking about slowing down, and you said that you're moving through life in a much slower way than you used to. And so yeah, it reminded me of my own epic journey with slowing down. And maybe it's an epic journey for all of us right now that we're on. Yeah, there's a sigh in me. Ah, when I just think of slowing down in my own life. And, before I came into all of this work, I was an arts producer, and I have identified as a workaholic before. I've dipped my toe into that identity. Mm. Yeah, just how fast I was moving on a daily basis and how much pressure I felt on a daily basis. And it eventually did really bring me down. Essentially, I had a bit of a nervous breakdown around, 34, 35. And because my nervous system couldn't sustain all this pressure, all this speed, all this multitasking, so much drive, drive, drive. And so really, my whole healing journey was about slowing down. So no wonder this is what I'm facilitating essentially with others, is this space of slowing down, because it's been quite a process. I also move much slower through life than I would say most people do. I have fewer hours of productivity in my day than a lot of other people do. I work with the concept of spoons. We come into each day with a certain number of spoons of our attention and energy that we have available to us. And so I am rationing spoons. I'm regulating myself by going, okay, no, that's going to be too much. And sometimes there's a sense of missing out because of my need to move so much slower than I did before coming into healing. So it's had a profound effect on my life. It's really become my whole what my life is about, among many other things. Yeah. And yeah, so thanks for opening up the concept and allowing me to share about that and reflect on
Hmm.
that, and to share that part of myself with you. Also, there's been sometimes it gets clouded in some shame, and I don't talk about it a lot. But slowness in my own life, yeah, it's been a profound thing. I also just wanted to respond to the concept of the space and relating to the space, and how much I deeply appreciate that. I often, in that silent place that we started out in, I often invite people to feel into the space around them and just notice its willingness, the willingness of the space to hold hold us in whatever needs to unfold. And there's something about doing that in silence. It's the silence that allows us to connect with the space in that way. So yes, another element of that deeper listening, and another outcome of slowing down, being able to hear the space. Here.
Thank you. I think what's rising up in me hearing what you shared, I mean, first of all, thank you. I appreciate the depth of which you shared, and the openness of, sharing that piece that you haven't often vocalized about slowing down. And yeah, so many things kind of popping up, one of which is like my own moment of years ago working at Starbucks, heading into holidays, touching the front door to go into work and realizing I can't do this anymore. And having this moment of, I've shared it before on the podcast, but this moment of like honoring that. And that was kind of the beginning of slowing down in a way that was, as the doctor said, if you don't, you're going to end up having a heart attack or something. And now I recently took a part-time job 3 days a week. It started out as 10 to 3, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was perfect. It was like I still had my mornings, still had the space, I still had some time in the afternoon, and I had my evenings. And then they asked me if I would start an hour earlier. And I said yes, because it felt like the right thing to do and it felt aligned. But just losing that hour has been a bit of a challenge. And I noticed myself going quicker to compensate for that hour. And anyway, it's fascinating. And almost this sense of loss, and this like, yeah, I think in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to do that. Wouldn't have to make that choice to I mean, it comes down to like paying the bills, right? And all the responsibilities and the things that we carry. And at the same time, I feel deep gratitude that I have that choice to still have space in my week compared to what others have to do. So I'm very grateful for that. And then I guess the other piece is just like you mentioned, feeling like you were in your head. And I was like, wow, like I just feel really free in this space, and enjoying the quality of like how time is passing. And it's so interesting to just allow myself to be in that, even though I know this space. I've felt it before. And it is our birthright to be going this slow and to be so present and without distraction. And it makes me think that, you know, way back, that's just the way it was. There wasn't as much noise, and there wasn't as much distraction and notifications. And even just when it comes to communicating, like I think I have probably 7 different ways that people can reach out to me. And it's just, sometimes they all go off at the same time. It's wild. It's like, how did we get here? And each of those is a byproduct of a company trying to hold our attention somewhere. Message through Facebook, message through Instagram. And it's like, wow, like it's too much. And there's times where it feels overwhelming and it feels like I don't want to respond. And yet there's this urge to do that. And so I've gotten way better at not responding immediately. I've been way better at sometimes waiting till the next day or even longer, and learning that, oh, it's actually okay. And that people actually are fine with that because they're busy too. So that's kind of what's rising up for me in the moment. I'm also noticing that our time together is coming very close to an end. And so just that blows my mind because it's gone very quickly, and at the same time it's felt so expansive and relaxing. So Thank you for creating that space, and I will pass the talking stick back to you.
Yeah, it feels like this topic of slowing down is really what has landed
Mm,
in our space together. I feel a lot of juice around that. And it came up the other day in session too, in a session with someone. Let's see, yeah, I find themes run through all of my sessions sometimes. And just yeah, I guess in a little bit of closing, something you said about medically being having to slow down. I can't remember exactly what your words were, but
yeah.
yeah, that's what I felt is that I wasn't slowing down. I was going too fast every day, pushing my nervous system to the max. And the universe had to do something to stop me. And I feel like that's what happens. That's what I see. That's what I've experienced in myself and in others is that if we don't listen to that voice that says, like you said, this is too much, the body will find its own way of slowing us down,
Hmm.
whether it's through mental emotional issues or an autoimmune disease or fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue. So I guess in my heart, there's just a big here, here,
Mm,
and a lot of love to everyone, to all of us in that process of finding our innate rhythm and our innate equilibrium that brings out the very best of what we have to offer to ourselves and the world. I have a closing prayer that I have used in a few different groups. Okay, so closing prayer. This is something that evolved through many, many different group experiences of mine. And this is its current form. So may all our circles continue to grow infinitely and abundantly to include ourselves, each other, all living beings, and all life itself. May each of us find our voice and the courage to speak it and live it. And may no one single being be forgotten or excluded from this movement. Slowly, our circles grow. We grieve, release, and expand our inner space. We are deepened, enriched, and transformed. And so the world is changed, one person at a time.
love that. Thank you.
I wanted to say Hey Ahoa at the end of that. And Hey Ahoa to me means my ancestors greet your ancestors.
Mm, thank you.
Hmm. It's a
Yeah.
term that came to me, so it's not a particular language.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated that closing because it spoke to so many experiences that I've also lived and witnessed, and it's what drives me in the work that I do as well, in the ways that you honored in that closing. So I'm grateful for that.
Mm. Yeah, it's been great to occupy this space with you and to connect and resonate.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really nice for me to resonate with other fellow souls and facilitators. Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, and I
Thanks for
imagine that.
doing what you do.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad to have this unique conversation compared to what usually happens on the podcast. So it was great to have the what it felt like a really good experience to have, and I appreciate that time and grateful to have had you on the podcast for this conversation in this way.
Hmm, hmm. So thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah, let's blow out our candle and release the space and release ourselves into the rest of the day. And may our time together continue to serve us well and in a positive way as we move ahead.
Hmm. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. If this conversation resonated, please subscribe, rate, or share. It truly helps this work reach the people who are meant to find it. If you'd like to step inside my world a little further, I host a free live practice 3 mornings a week called Start With You. Just 20 minutes on Zoom to return to your own energy. Everything you need can be found at the link in the show notes. Until next time, may your day be slow and sacred.